know what happened last night? Set a new record on the border. 10,000 people. That's all that we know. There's probably more. Came across that border illegally. We have a crisis that the president continues to ignore. It's just not people coming from South America. They're coming from 160 other countries. CNN reported last week that there was an individual bringing people across that had ties to ISIS. I have asked the White House for a classified briefing for all of Congress. They have not provided that.
My message is close the border, vet these people. Like, how come they get to cut the line in front of millions of people waiting? They're waiting to come to America the right way, but they get like pushed in front. The migrants, the illegal migrants, they get everything. They put them first, put Americans last. We need to be America first, not Americans last.
Do you think that AOC was responsive to messages like this?
No, she cut her little press conference early because of us. She kept on talking the same thing. Housing for migrants, work for migrants. But what about our homeless veterans? What about our homeless Americans? She puts the migrants first, us last.
Hey there, guys. Welcome to the channel. So I'm sure most of you guys are aware that the situation on our southern border is getting so incredibly out of control and so incredibly dangerous that even people in Democrat strongholds, people that aren't politically motivated, politically inclined, politically active, people who don't even watch the news are starting to pay attention. You have politicians in places like New York begging the federal government for help in getting immigrants work so that they can become less of a drain financially on these incredibly virtuous sanctuary cities that are so happy to have them there. You know, while the hardworking American citizens in these same places are literally starting to lose their minds and demand some real and immediate action from these same politicians. So, I mean, it really is the best and most recent example of you get what you vote for. And now, I mean, the liberals, they absolutely hate when we use this term, when we say the word invasion, but you have to ask them, you know, and I'll ask the liberals that tune in here, what else would you call someone rushing your border, breaking federal law, and then immediately planting the flag, their sovereign flag, on your U.S. soil? What do you call that? And I have to ask, you know, what does this do to your narrative that these people are fleeing an oppressive and violent state? You know, they literally carried that country's flag thousands of miles just to send you a very, very clear message. And guys, this is a kind of invasion. You know, take a look. But before we do, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. Really, really appreciate all the support from you guys. You have to see.
Breaking news from the border. Customs and Border Patrol sources telling Fox News they've recorded 11,000 encounters in the past 24 hours. They say it's the single highest day in recent memory in that town of Eagle Pass in Texas. Alone, Eagle Pass saw more than 4,000 this weekend. A lot of these are live images now that we've been watching throughout the morning. And screen left is from Sunday, but we saw something very similar just 2 hours ago. So it's not ebbing, in case you're wondering on that point.
Publicly, this is simply not sustainable. Here, where we are standing, we had more than 1,300 migrants walk by today. It's in the hundreds, more than 500 today, and you've got a capacity problem here, Mike. More than 200% over capacity, meaning they've got nowhere to put these folks. That's why we see bus after bus.
In Eagle Pass, Texas, where just moments ago, Customs and Border Protection cut a hole through the concertina wire that has been stretched by Texas DPS along the border there to allow migrants to come through. It was initially a group of about 60 to 70 people. It swelled to some 300 very, very quickly. Some women and children who were sort of in the middle of the river were picked up by, I guess it would be Texas DPS, because they're running the airboats there up and down the river, and taken out of the water and to safer ground there. But as you can see, as we have watched for the last couple of weeks, the illegal migration across the river into the United States continues with this border crossing in Eagle Pass, seeing thousands of people. And then over the weekend, we set what we believe is a new record of 11,000 people crossing into the United States in a single day. We'll keep an eye on this one.
So I have to ask, man, for the people that truly do believe that Joe Biden is the best and most effective president of all time, first, you're nuts. You're completely insane. I just can't possibly believe that anyone could still believe this. But I have heard that one or two still do exist. So, but how do you explain the fact that they do absolutely nothing to solve our immigration problems? It has to be by design, right? And not just him, both Democrats and Republicans, none of them seem to really, really care about solutions. And if they do, they just need to make sure that it's the other guy's fault before they actually come to any kind of solutions. Perfect example. AOC was just on Face the Nation. We've done a couple videos about it. And according to her, the millions and millions of people who have stormed the border since 2020 are all the fault of Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. She says that the sanctions against Venezuela, which were orchestrated by Marco Rubio in response to Nicolas Maduro's government, literally being oppressive, literally killing people, killing its citizens. Well, it's our fault for caring about human rights is basically what she's saying. It's our fault for caring, because what she's not saying is even more important. All of Venezuela's problems, everything that these people are fleeing, it all has roots in socialism.
The New York Times in August is saying immigration is arguably this administration's weakest issue. What did you mean?
Well, I think the politics around immigration in the United States is, to no surprise to many people, one of the most contentious issues. We saw this dramatically inflamed under President Trump, but it remains to be a very controversial and contentious issue. And I believe that makes enacting some of the policy changes necessary much more complicated and difficult. But additionally, I think we also need to examine the root of this problem, because if we are constantly engaging in foreign policy that drives people to our southern border, in this specific instance, U.S. sanctions that were originally authored by Marco Rubio began and certainly took a large part in the driving of populations to our southern border. Shortly after those sanctions, those broad-based sanctions.
You're talking about Venezuela.
Yes. Shortly after those broad-based sanctions were enacted, we started seeing dramatic increases in these populations that were coming to our southern border. And so we have to address the root of these population movements and the migration crisis. And we also have to address the domestic U.S. policy issues when it comes to immigration reform.
But the Maduro government has also been responsible for large parts of that. Are you saying that you want the Biden administration to pull back pressure on him?
I think we need to re-examine the nature of these sanctions. There are sanctions that are very specific. For example, the Magnitsky Act sanctions that do actually focus on the decision makers and people who may be violating norms, practices, civil rights. But broad-based sanctions that punish the overall economy and harm everyday working people that are driving them into the economic and political destitution.
So when Secretary Mayorkas says Congress needs to fix the immigration system, you're saying the federal government also has to make changes in its foreign policy to do what you are arguing. Do you think President Biden needs to go to the border? Do you intend to go to the border?
Yes, we absolutely do. We've also been dealing with the busing situation in New York City, so we have really been looking at that as part of our front line as well. And we want to also be an example to the country as well of a humane process and the supports and changes that are necessary for us to maintain that standard of care. And it's a standard of care that, frankly, is something that we should be proud of. Folks are coming into the Roosevelt Hotel. There are absolutely capacity issues that we had been struggling with.
Migrants have to leave after 30 days now.
And we have these changes from the Adams administration. But when you step foot into the Roosevelt Hotel, people are getting vaccinated, kids are getting enrolled in school. We are seeing people that are actually getting mental health care assessments. And now, hopefully, with this recent designation for work authorization and the ability to work through TPS, hopefully folks are going to be getting jobs from the New York businesses that are asking to hire them.
So she doesn't want to blame socialism. She doesn't want to blame the vicious government of Venezuela for allegedly killing thousands and thousands of dissidents. No, man, she wants to blame the U.S. and their reaction to the socialist nation murdering citizens. What she wants to blame is Trump for actually caring about people. And that's insane. I wish that these half-assed reporters would actually press these people on these questions. None of this makes any kind of sense, except for in the mind of a mushy brain liberal. That's the only place that any of that makes sense. So just to recap, what they're not asking her to explain, she won't blame the socialists in charge of either Venezuela or the United States. No, it's the other guy's fault. And another thing that I wish that they would press her on is look how happy she is about, what we're doing for these folks. She's happy that we're giving them mental health care, food, housing, working on getting them jobs. And that's all great. I'm happy that people are getting that too. But what about the homeless Americans right there in her very own district? What about them? She's not happy about what's happening to them. Well, she is happy about what's happening to them, but she's not doing anything about it. How does any of this make sense to any of these people that voted for this stuff? And how do none of these high-powered, high-paid anchors ever press these people on this stuff? It's such a simple layup question that they never ask. But anyway, it's all enough to make you crazy, man. But these people do not care about anyone. They don't care about immigrants. They don't care about human rights. All they care about is power. And that's all that this is about, more power. And anyway, guys, I'm rambling. That's just my take. Let me know yours in the comments. And if you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. We'll see you in the next one.